Hi, it's Thursday, so it's time for a tip talk, and we're doing a non-technical tip talk this week, so it may seem a little weird. You'll notice that we've actually moved locations because we are roving librarians around here. Today we want to talk about poetry, which is why we're back here in the poetry section. I know if you've read poetry in English class, maybe you think all poetry was written 200 years ago by, dead people, but that's really not the case. We really actually do have modern poetry, different types of poetry, and so that's what we want to talk about. The best way to appreciate poetry is to find good poetry. So you can start with a book called Good Poems. But obviously not every good poem is in this book, and so we have other books that you could maybe find some good stuff in.
Right, we have lots and lots of different kinds of poetry. Poetry people think of as just a genre, but it's a form, okay?
Right.
And there are lots of different kinds within this form. And here in our collection, we have some classic poetry.
Yes.
We also have modern poetry. You may recognize these from the Instagrams.
Right. We have funny poetry. So things that literally should make you laugh when you read it. And then we have children's poetry, which, full disclosure, actually lives in children's and not over here.
It's close.
But books, poems for children, which also sometimes kind of make you laugh, which is fun.
We have poetry that tells a story. This
Yes.
one's really awesome, by the way. Novels in verse are a thing that has been kind of a trend for a while now. So it looks like a big book, but it's poems that tell you a story.
And you know what's great about novels in verse and poetry in general is that there's not as much fluff. So if you read a book and you're like, please quit telling me how green the grass is, I don't need to know. Poetry might be for you because it really deals with dialogue and feelings and character development and less about the other stuff going on. So I love a good novel in verse because it's so quick. You don't have to get bogged down in the extra bits sometimes.
Right. I mean, they might tell you about how green the grass
might,
is, but they're not going to write a paragraph about it.
They don't have time for that.
A line or two, and then you're going to move on to how blue the sky is and how fluffy the clouds are and blah, blah, blah. But it's going to be, it's basically, it's distilled, okay? It is boiled down into just what you need to make you feel something.
Sure, you guys have seen some of this, even on Instagram. This is an autobiographical one, so this is an author who wrote a lot of books that we have in our collection. This is her story, told in verse.
Right.
So great.
Right. So we have poetry about people's lives. We have poetry about historical events. We have poetry about trees and flowers and ugly stuff like.
Oh yes.
We have poetry about horrible things. This one used to be really popular. I don't know why everybody's kind of not checking out Ellen Hopkins right now. But if you're not sure what to look for, if you don't really know what you want, you can come and we can help point you in a general direction. Or if you're looking for a specific poet or a specific kind of poetry and we don't have it, we will buy it for you. We have also put a poetry wish list on our Amazon. I'm going to put a link to it in the description. And if you want to help develop this collection some more, then that would be fantastic. 'Cause we do actually have people who have been requesting poetry more here lately. That's why we wanted to refresh this collection. But also our forensic students often need it to create pieces for competition.
Right.
Our teachers could use it to help kind of, maybe add a little bit of spice to
Your 200-year-old dead,
some of their
dead
stuff.
guy poetry.
Yeah.
Just saying. So remember that although nonfiction and fiction get more traffic than most any other section, we do have a poetry section dedicated just to things in verse. And you might like it.
Right. Ooh, also, just throwing this in there, if you've never written a love poem to your significant other or to the person that you're into, you should try that. If you don't want to write a poem, come over here and we'll help direct you to some that might get you some attention.
It is not called plagiarism as long as you write at the bottom who wrote the poem. So you can totally crib some poetry.
I found this poem for you completely expresses my feelings, you know.
No, it sounds super cheesy, but it worked in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, if you're not in a band, I mean, find some poetry and, you know, woo
There you go.
with it.
All right, guys, come talk poetry with us, okay?
All right, see you later.